Rent control doesn't work. And we see that in cities like New York and San Francisco that have some of the strictest rent control laws in the country, yet they have some of the highest rents in the country as well. And we know that price controls in general don't work. There are countless examples throughout history. Thomas Sowell outlines it in his book, Basic Economics, that when the price of a product is controlled by the government, one of two things happen. Either the cost of production is too high to bring that product to the market, or there's an extreme shortage of that product throughout the country. And now Biden's plan for price controls across the United States is no different than what history has taught us and what current day New York and San Francisco teaches us about rent control in general. Now, I will say that Biden's plan for rent control isn't as restrictive and won't be as damaging as some of these headlines are making it out to be. We're going to talk about all that in this video. Before we do, my name's Liam O'Reilly. I'm a realtor in Vermont with Jerry Riley Real Estate. If you have any real estate needs, all of my contact information's in the description. Reach out to me directly and I'd be happy to help you. So let's get right into this video here, or this article out of the National Review. It says Biden's rent control scheme is a dumb idea expressed thoughtlessly. Now, let's talk about what his plan is. The Biden plan reportedly calls legislation that strips landlords who own more than 50 properties of certain tax benefits if they increase rents on their property by more than 5% per year. So essentially, they're not saying that if you're a landlord who owns more than 50 units, you can't increase rent by more than 5% per year. What they're saying is that if you do increase rent by more than 5% per year, you're going to lose certain tax benefits that are available to you as a landlord. So it's going to incentivize landlords to keep their price increases at 5% per year or less. Now, I don't think that's as bad as saying you can't jack rent up by more than 5% per year. I think that would be catastrophic to the overall economy. But removing the tax benefits and incentivizing corporations to only increase their rents by 5% per year will not be as catastrophic as we see in some of these other countries and cities across the country. Now, we're going to take a look at some examples that they outline in this article here. They talk about New York. They say that as of last year, over 26,000 units in the city were deliberately kept vacant because landlords did not believe they could afford the upkeep required to rent their properties out. Not only do prospective landlords struggle to secure loans for rent-stabilized properties because of the increased risk of default on those loans, the lack of incentive for landlords to make necessary renovations to their properties results in less inventory, not more. And this is what we see in rent-controlled places throughout history, is that landlords are not incentivized to make upgrades, keep their properties nice in their rent-controlled units. And what it does is it helps tenants who have stayed there for a while keep a low rent, but it makes it very difficult for young people, for people looking for a new apartment to actually secure housing because the prices are kept artificially low compared to where market rates are. Now, when we take a look at some examples from across the world here, in Sweden's rigid rent control regime yields low rates to those lucky enough to lock in. But young Swedes often wait more than a decade for an apartment, and longer still in the most desirable parts of the country like Stockholm, one observer noted. So, again, you restrict the price and you increase the demand for rental housing across the country. At the end of the day, we need more housing in this country. So anything that is not going to encourage building throughout the country, bringing more units, bringing more housing units to the market is just a distraction to the real problem. So in Spain, which has one of the smallest rental markets in Europe, due to the relatively high rates of home ownership, property owners prefer to court short stay tourists over tenants. As a result, it is next to impossible for renters to find a long-term property, affordable or otherwise. The supply of long-term rental flats has dropped 15% since the law passed, while the short-term supply grew by 60%, which is crazy. Here we go. Perverse is the right word. Jason Furman, once Barack Obama's top economic advisor and now a professor of economics at Harvard's Kennedy School, says rent control has been about as disgraced as an economic policy in the toolkit. He says in response to the Biden administration's latest folly, the idea will be reviving and expanding. The idea we'd be reviving and expanding, it will ultimately make our housing supply problems worse, not better. And I completely agree. right? It's going to discourage new property owners to build, even though this law is not in place for new property builders, right? If you're building a property, this 5% increase over what the market rents would be is not in place for you as a builder, but it discourages people from actually building and wanting to invest and build this business of rental real estate, which is something that, a lot of people think large landlords are bad, and I'm sure some of them are, but at the end of the day, they're adding what's needed to the economy. And the reason why we have this rental shortage is because of government restrictions. Now, mostly local government restrictions, and we see this across the country where there's a huge housing shortage in places like where I'm at in Vermont, or like San Francisco, New York, where building is much more restrictive. And then places like Texas and Florida have an abundance of housing. We're seeing inventory, especially on the sale side, really start to tick up. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to solve a problem that was caused by these government restrictions, these NIMBYs, the people not in my backyard who don't want more housing built in the areas that they live in. They're trying to fix that problem, again, caused by government restrictions, by adding more government restrictions, which is not what we need. We need to take a step away, take a step back from all the red tape through zoning and things along those lines, and allow builders to bring more property, bring more inventory to the market, which is ultimately going to help the tenants. It's going to help renters. It's going to help first-time home buyers if we have more supply, both on the rent side and the purchase side, and adding more restrictions and disincentivizing people to become landlords, and disincentivizing large landlords is not something that we should be doing in order to help the overall average American. That's just my opinion on it. I'd love to know what you guys think in the comments. Feel free to leave me a comment. I would be happy to get back to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.